going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going to be going over Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. So let's get into that. Hi, my name is Leo, and as I talk about movie, TV show, video game related, or just anything nerdy, you are in the right place. And like I said, today we are talking about the Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. So without further ado, let's get into the review. Now, we are just a couple of days from Fantastic Four First Steps. I'm very excited for that, and like we did yesterday, I'm going and through all the Fantastic Four movies. I can go do reviews for you guys and then do a big old ranking at the end of it once the new movie comes out. But before I give you my thoughts about Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, make sure to let me know what you guys think about this movie in the comment section down below. Also share your excitement for the new Fantastic Four movie. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that as well. But starting with my pros, once again, I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie. I still remember going to the movie theaters back in 2007 with my family to go watch this movie. This was a big deal for me back then. You know, this felt like the big, movie of the year, the big superhero movie of the year. I can't really remember what other superhero movies came out that year, or if any, but this was definitely one that I know my dad really enjoyed it. He was a big fan of the first Fantastic Four. I was as well. You know, even though I've always been more of a DC person, these movies were some of the superhero movies that were like really close and near and dear to my heart. And I wish I got to know these characters a little bit more. Like I said in the first review with the original Fantastic Four, I don't really know too much about these characters in the comic book sense. My knowledge really comes from these movies, and I'm not too sure how accurate these movies are compared to the comic books, but I still have a lot of fun with them. I think these characters still work as a dynamic, as a whole, as a dynamic between all four of them. I think they have really good chemistry between each other. I think even for a movie that's damn near 20 years old, still holds up in terms of like the effects. Like, I think the Silver Surfer always looked extremely awesome. Even watching it back today, it doesn't feel like it's super dated. It still actually looks really good effects. Even just all the effects between the Fantastic Four itself are always done very well. So it still holds up to this day of being a very fun, somewhat action-packed movie. There are some great sequences, like when the Silver Surfer first arrives and you have that whole chase sequence with him and Johnny Storm, like going through the freeway, through the buildings, trying to figure out what is this being that came to Earth. That sequence is always really awesome to me as well. The whole sequence kind of towards the end as well, with Galactus coming down to Earth and the Silver Surfer kind of sacrificing himself essentially to kind of save Earth. All that looks extremely great as well. The CGI was done very well, holds up to this day, and I just have a lot of fun with these characters as well. I think all four of these characters are still casted very well. I think they portray the character that they're trying to be extremely well, and then we even get returning Julian as Doctor Doom. And we don't get as much of him towards the beginning, not as much like screen time, so you don't really feel his presence as much throughout this movie. But it is still fun to kind of have him back and replaying that role again of Doctor Doom, and him trying to scheme and trying to figure out a way to kind of take over the power for himself, as he wants to do always. And this movie ends up just being very fun, very nostalgic for me. You know, there's a lot of flaws, which we'll get into, but for someone that watched this movie in theaters back in 2007 as a little kid, this still ends up being very fun for me. I still find enjoyment out of watching this movie. I still enjoy myself in these characters. I still find myself loving the characters of the Fantastic Four, and it ends up just being a very cool movie for me to kind of revisit every once in a while. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get into my cons. And watching this movie almost 20 years later, it's very strange in terms of what I remember as a kid and what I saw now. This movie definitely does something that the first movie was trying to do, and reestablish that like wow factor. And I think because it's not an origin story, they didn't know really how to do that. And they again tried to put like the superpowers on display, but then they kind of hide it behind this whole like little gimmick. And I don't know if this gimmick is kind of something that happens in the comic books with the Silver Surfer, if this ever happens to them, or if this is like an effect that the Silver Surfer has. But essentially it's Johnny Storm has an interaction with the Silver Surfer, and now he, for some reason, every time he touches one of the other members of the Fantastic Four, their powers swap. So it's kind of supposed to be like this really fun gimmick that, oh look, Susan Storm now has the powers of the Human Torch and vice versa, and oh look, Johnny Storm is now the Thing, and oh look, he stretches now. So it's kind of meant to be this like, oh wow, look at that, that's crazy. But then it ends up being a little weird because then all the fight sequences get messed up because of this, and you never have all four of them like fighting together at the same time, so you never get like that team dynamic of them. So it kind of sucks where you're displaying the powers again just for displayment's sake, and you don't really get that like epic team up of these four characters. And they doubled down on that gimmick towards the end of the movie, where even though throughout this entire film it's been a swap, somehow they figured out a way, if they just all touch at the same time, all of their powers get transferred into Johnny Storm. And so instead of getting a team up movie at the end of it, once we have our big final battle between Doctor Doom and he has the Silver Surfer's board, our big battle ends up being Doctor Doom versus Johnny Storm, but Johnny Storm has the powers of all four members. So we come to these Fantastic Four movies for the team up of the Fantastic Four, not to see Johnny Storm have all of their powers. And it's fun. I remember as a kid, I thought that was crazy. Like, wow, that's super cool. And again, I'm not sure if this is something that happens in the comic books. If it is, then, cool. They're trying to adapt something, but seeing it now, it just feels a little weird, especially where this entire movie doesn't feel like a team up movie, because every time something happens, everyone seems to be a little bit separate. And then once the big final battle happens, it becomes just a gimmick battle to show that Johnny Storm can take all of their powers. And don't get me wrong, it's still cool. Like, even though it feels off and it feels like I wish we would have just gotten the team up battle, it is still cool to watch. There's still that part of me that's a little kid that's like, wow, look at that. Johnny Storm has all the powers. That's super awesome. But again, I just reiterating, do wish we would have gotten a big team up battle instead of, Susan getting hurt and Johnny Storm taking over all the powers and defeating Doctor Doom himself. Also, I feel like we never really get the feeling of a looming threat throughout this entire movie. We find out pretty late into the film why the Silver Surfer is here. And essentially he leads Galactus to planets to consume so that he doesn't consume the Silver Surfer's planet. And by the way, I'm sorry if I'm speaking spoilers. This movie's almost 20 years old, so if you've never seen it, I'm sorry, but it's just, just to get my point across. But essentially, that's what the Silver Surfer is here for. And I think they do the Galactus character a little weird, where instead of being like actually Galactus, he is just like a giant space cloud. And I feel like that's just more so they didn't know how to really portray Galactus, if they felt like he might have seemed a little too silly in this world of this just like giant person. Essentially, and obviously we're getting a Galactus movie again and a Silver Surfer movie again with the First Step, and it looks like they're going to portray those characters, a lot better. So I'm excited to see how that is portrayed. But in this movie, I feel like whatever the producers or the company or director probably felt like the Galactus character was a cool idea and concept, but didn't know how to execute it properly, where it didn't seem too silly. And you're already in a superhero movie with crazy superpowers and a silver person that rides a surfboard, essentially. I feel like they could have just taken that full step and it would have worked a lot better. So, but beyond that, I still don't think it feels like we have a big looming threat. We find out again pretty soon that the Silver Surfer isn't treated as like a bad person or a bad being. He just wants to keep his world safe, which is cool. And once we finally do get Galactus isn't really the like final battle. It's Doctor Doom that stole, the Silver Surfer's board, and he's the real threat in this movie. But we don't get too much of him. We don't see him too much, He is trying to be on the good guy side, but for his own selfish reasons, to get the board from the Silver Surfer. And once we finally defeat Doctor Doom, the Silver Surfer defeats Galactus in one fell swoop, essentially one energy blast. So the looming threat of, oh my God, the Earth is going to be consumed by Galactus, you never feel that tension. You never feel that threat throughout this entire movie. So we get a Fantastic Four movie that you feel like there's no stakes, no threat. You don't feel like the team is really a team at all. And most of the movie is kind of very jokey and gimmicky and trying to figure out how Richard Reed and Susan Storm are going to get married. So it ends up being very all over the place, a little sloppy. And again, you can see why even both of these movies don't really get a lot of like claim when it comes to being good superhero movies. But again, I still have a lot of nostalgia for them. I still have enough fun because I just remember watching this movie as a kid and how much in awe I was with these films. But seeing it now as an adult, I can definitely see a lot more of the flaws. But that is going to be it for this one, guys. I still have a lot of fun with this movie because of just pure nostalgia. And I do think there's some fun, cool action sequences and still really good CGI effects. But there is a lot of story plot and dialogue and character work and decisions that this movie makes that just makes it feel a little incomplete. But let me know what you guys think about Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear all you guys' thoughts. And also remember to share your excitement for Fantastic Four First Steps. But again, if you guys like Time Think movie, TV show, video game related, or just anything nerdy, you have in the right place. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.